Can Donald Trump, through the wave of a pen, change the Immigration and Naturalization Act as it relates to asylum? With people coming over the southern border, Judge Randy Moss says no. We have our first class action, our first injunction since the United States Supreme Court ruled last week that that's exactly how federal judges have to handle and try to rein in Donald Trump. And we cover it on the midweek edition of Legal AF with my special guest anchor, Rachel Cohen. And here's a clip. Let's talk about this news that hit the wire that Jared Lane Wise, a former FBI agent, who was in the middle of a trial when Trump pardoned him, and the jury had not yet returned a verdict, but was one of the guys that broke through the doors, wandered around in the Senate for 9 or 10 minutes, but along the way, confronted law enforcement, yelled to have the police killed, said to the crowd to whip them into a frenzy, to go F them and kill them, and said, you're an embarrassment to law enforcement when he got in their faces. And he has now been rehabilitated by Pam Bondi, who's put him alongside Ed Martin. Why don't you talk about, Rachel, this weaponization committee and Ed Martin, who we were thrilled when pressure campaign and the Senate let it be known they weren't going to confirm him to be the U.S. Attorney for Washington. That's why we have Jeanine Pirro. But he might be able to do a lot of damage running around with this weaponization committee in an unconfirmed position. Why don't you tell our audience about it?
Absolutely. And I think that it also kind of goes together with just who all the Trump administration is willing to put forth in the first place. I know that we're going to talk a little bit about Alina Habba in a second, but I think that those concepts even go together. Emile Beauvais and just Ed Martin should never have been nominated for anything in the first place, let alone now brought into this position that does not require him to be confirmed by the Senate. Because when we platform these people who are really presenting this kind of alternate history and alternate reality about what's happening and what's against the law and what is unacceptable in American democracy, that's how we end up with then January 6th rioters being employed by them. And I think that all I can think of when I think about the January 6th kind of pardons and the total rewrite of history is the way that it was so challenging historically in the American South and beyond to get convictions for people who had committed hate crimes against people of color, because the sheriffs and the juries and everyone else was protecting them and pretending that, yes, we enforce the law and we can say that we enforce the law, but then vanishing as soon as there was a need to enforce the law against people who held power or were working towards the outcome that those sheriffs wanted. In that case, obviously a racial hierarchy. But I think now we're seeing Donald Trump very obviously signal to people that I think about it too with the payouts to the family of Ashley Babbitt is we're signaling you can break the law so long as it is in furtherance of the Trump agenda. And then you can be punished for breaking the law when you have not actually broken any law at all, so long as the Trump administration doesn't like what you're doing. And so I think that Ed Martin kind of just opening the Pandora's box of him getting to imprint his own ideology, or really the ideology of people like Trump and Stephen Miller, onto the Department of Justice and the federal notion of justice broadly is really terrifying, because there's a lot of guardrails in the American system that only exist when people are operating in good faith.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, the good news is that we were able to deny Martin the role of the U.S. attorney. He was already Elon Musk henchman trying to do investigations. We know he could do a lot of damage as the U.S. attorney. So far, Jeanine Pirro, although she's obscenely unqualified for the position, doesn't seem to be hell-bent on being Donald Trump's political hack in that role yet. But he can do a lot of damage in this weaponization committee. And now you can see the types of people that he's putting around the table with the permission of Pam Bondi. This is just the continued rewriting of history. In order for Donald Trump to be able to continue to say out loud that the election was stolen from him, and they're going to be investigating Joe Biden and how the election was stolen, and in order to do that, then you have to absolve all of your minions that took your clarion call and the discontent you fomented and turned it into a violent attack, an insurrectionist attack on the Capitol. But you have to continue to kind of, oh, what a tangled web we weave. We got to keep rewriting and revising. And well, if I didn't do anything wrong and there was a big steal and these people that attacked, they didn't do anything wrong, then I have to pardon them. And if I pardon them, then I can put them on blue ribbon panels to talk about the weaponization. Here we go. This is the whole chicken and the egg all over again.
And it also becomes almost that 1984 of they contradict themselves. And I think we've seen that in even the fallout with Elon and Trump in that fight, right? Like it just changes what the rules even are and whose side we're supposed to automatically be on at any given moment. But
so let's turn to Alina Habba for a moment. So Alina Habba, parking lot lawyer, literally, who worked near the golf course in Bedminster, found a way to worm her way into the inner circle of Donald Trump by handling a couple of his employment matters, one of which was ethically challenged at best, and she had to settle a case related to it. She herself has said that her main role as the U.S. attorney she's admitted that it's to be a political hack, to try to turn New Jersey red. I'm a born and bred New Jersey person, and there's been no major investigations about crime that have been announced in New Jersey. All it is her going after the political enemies of Donald Trump. She's indicted and arrested Representative McIver, who's pled not guilty, about being at an observation point at a federal detention immigration center, Delaney Hall in New Jersey, along with the mayor of Newark, along with other elected officials. She's been indicted. The mayor of Mayor Baraka, who is a political enemy of Donald Trump and is on the short list of people who may run for the 2028 presidential election. He was arrested, indicted, or had a criminal charge against him, and then that was dropped. And that was so bad that a federal magistrate judge had to excoriate Alina Habba in court and say, you need to do better because your office can't use indictments and arrest and the threats of it for political gain. That is in violation of the Department of Justice manual. That's in violation of your ethical duties. She's been hit with a New Jersey bar complaint about not only filing criminal charges against Baraka and arresting him and doing a perp walk of him, and the same thing of McIver, but threatening to do that and opening a criminal investigation for leverage against two-time Democratic Governor Murphy and their Attorney General Plotkin. And that's all she's been doing. So she's going to answer for those, and of course, all the terrible things she did as the one of the criminal lawyers for Donald Trump. How do you think she's going? What do you make of Donald Trump doubling down on Alina Habba and trying to slide her through because he thinks he has the votes in the Senate? And what should the Senate Democrats do in terms of the confirmation hearing, including about Emil Bovee, they're taking a break on that confirmation hearing too. I don't want to lose sight on that because he's obscenely unqualified to be a Third Circuit Court of Appeals lifetime appointed judge.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that you've covered it, but I haven't been able to listen in the last week or so. I'm sure that you have seen at least the whistleblower letter about Emil Bovee telling people within the Department of Justice that they might need to just say, fuck the court. If there's a court order that hobbles kind of implementation of the Trump administration's mass deportation agenda. I think that all of those things are really indicative of the fact that the Trump administration is trying to see what it can get away with. That's how I felt this entire kind of Trump 2.0. Because something that was pointed out to me so early on in this administration is that there are often things that the Trump administration could do legally, or could at least pretend it's doing legally, that they choose to just do in a blatantly illegal way. I think the deportations of people over judges' orders are deeply indicative of that. But I want to come back to what you pointed out about Alina Habba when she speaking said, hopefully I can play a role as U.S. attorney in the kind of aim of turning New Jersey red. Alina Habba does not need to say that. No one is, pointing a gun to her head saying all the intrusive thoughts and nefarious schemes, now you have to say them out loud. She's saying it because they're blatantly making it a priority to kind of show that there are no guardrails on them. That you can say the thing. I helped in looking into filing New Jersey, in personal capacity, filing New Jersey bar complaints against Alina Habba and put together an explainer of how people who are even not attorneys can file that, because sometimes I think it feels like we're just screaming into the ether. And if I'm going to scream into the ether, let me scream into the ether to the New Jersey bar. But I think that when we were doing that, something that really stood out to me in terms of how those bar complaints function is that it's very, very challenging to file a complaint for, a political prosecution unless the prosecutor has said something like, I hope I can play a role in turning New Jersey red, and then a month later gone and arrested 2 prominent Democrats. And I think that that is one of the most concerning things to me. And to your question about what I think Senate Democrats should do, they should do everything that they are already doing in terms of, blocking and protesting these appointments. But I also would like to see from more federal level electeds an acknowledgement that we are so far outside the bounds of the normal. And I would like to see some actions on the Democrats' side that kind of bear that out. And I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I think that there's many ideas. And I've been glad to see Democrats stepping up congressional oversight visits to various ICE detention facilities, because Representative McIver was exercising her, it's a kind of privilege of the office to engage in oversight visits of ICE facilities to make sure that people's human rights are not being violated. And the Trump administration is also trying to force people to only do visits if they've been given a certain amount of notice, right? To only do visits on certain days. And that's not how any of this works. And I think that it's important that Democrats continue to show up to those visits and broadcast them as much as possible. I'd like to see them bringing various news crews with them. I'd like to see them on the floor. I can't say refusing to follow necessarily rules or order, but I think that we are being a little bit handicapped when we do not acknowledge just how outside the kind of rules the GOP is playing, because they will go on and just say that aloud constantly to their supporters and also just put it out onto the internet. And I think that we need to be bringing top amounts of attention to that at all times, or Democrats need to be bringing those to the forefront. I'd love to see someone show up to an Emile Beauvais hearing in a shirt that says, might just have to say, fuck the court, Emile Beauvais. I don't think that we're going to see that, but maybe I'll wear that on one of the incoming. We have to appoint people to the court like that.
Now, by the way, adding you already is paying dividends in the merchandise area. Jordy Mysalis, attention, please. We have a tremendous idea.
I want to see it like on the Michael Scott sign, like fuck the court, Emile Beauvais, legal AF.
Absolutely. Well, and then when Senator Adam Schiff said, and I've done this in cross-examinations, when Adam Schiff said, did you say in the March hearing, as reported by Erez Reveni, the whistleblower, did you tell them that they should just tell courts to go F themselves and go tell? And he says, I can't recall. And so when I've done that, I've been like, I'll put that down. I'll put you down for a yes. That sounds like a yes. That sounds like a yes.
If you're not sure if you said, right, we'll just have to say fuck you to the court order.
Right. I use that phrase a lot for different institutions, so I can't remember that particular one, but Yeah. Why don't they should just do what Michael Cohen did, one of our fellow podcasters here on Midas Touch, when he was being cross-examined in in one of the Trump cases. And Todd Blanche, who's now our number 2 in the Department of Justice, went through a series of things from podcasts, including Midas Touch, including Legal AF, that Michael had said about Trump. Michael had a great line that cracked the jury up. I had a New York Times reporter who did a whole article about the trial. And Michael said he would read it out loud. Did you call him a shit stain, this, that, the other thing? And Michael just looked at the jury and said, sounds like something I would say.
Listen, I appreciate the honesty.
Right. Like, I can't recall, but that sounds like me. Right.
It's giving very, I smoked, but I did not inhale. But saying you want to deport people over judge's orders.
Exactly. Well, now you're seeing a little bit of a taste of this brand of pragmatic optimist that Rachel Cohen, along with her podcast partner Tiara Mack, are going to be bringing to the Legal AF YouTube channel. One of the reasons that I sort of picked Rachel to be with me today and sitting in for Karen Freeman-Agnifilo is to continue to bring these amazing points of view. It's not generational. I don't want anybody, he brought a generation, whatever your generation is, onto
millennial.
Millennial. Okay,
Fringe millennial.
Thank you. Alpha. I heard Alpha. My daughter's Alpha. I think that's the next one, which is great.
Oh yeah, we're starting all over. We're back at the beginning.
Yeah, we're back batted around. We're back at the top of the order. It's not that. It's you, as I said in one of my introductions for your shows. I said, she speaks to all generations. It's just you just have a voice that needs to be heard on a regular basis, and I'm glad you're here for it. Welcome back. We sit at the intersection of law and politics so you don't have to. We do that show twice a week, Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, live recording on YouTube. Join us there. We're now number 22 out of all YouTube podcasts in the world, regardless of genre, the number 1 law and politics one. And that's because of you. And we thank each and every one of our members of our audience. Now take that clip and ask people in your life to join our movement as part of their journey and download our audio podcast as well. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.